Warning, full spoilers for the episode below. Truly, Tweek and Craig are the unsung heroes of South Park. Last time these two were the central focus of an episode, the result was Season 19's Tweek x Craig, a hilarious little gem that proved the show can still tackle standalone episodes amid all the topical continuity-driven storylines that have dominated things lately. And following last week's rough start to Season 21, this dynamic duo again stepped up to remind us how great South Park can be when it finds its groove. This week, the show tackled two burning issues that dominate the waking lives of most Americans these days: the looming threat of nuclear war with North Korea and the inane Twitter habits of a certain commander-in-chief. As those two topics are pretty interconnected lately, the result was a much more satisfying blend than last week's smorgasbord of white nationalism, Amazon's Alexa and HGTV. But what truly made this episode work was the fact that it kept political figures like Kim Jong-un and President Garrison in the background. Trey Parker and Matt Stone promised a less politically driven season. And while they haven't necessarily delivered on that promise so far, Put It Down shows that it's possible to at least balance current events with the sort of goofy schoolyard drama that used to be the show's bread and butter. This episode wasn't about the US/North Korea situation so much as it was the debilitating effects the news cycle has on the American psyche these days. In that way, the eternally frazzled Tweek made for a perfect focal point. His bizarre song in the opening scene really set a hilarious tone for the episode as a whole. Topical humor aside, it was fun simply to reconnect with Tweek and Craig after a couple years and see how their unlikely romance has blossomed. After fighting it so hard in Tweek x Craig, the two seem to have settled nicely into being South Park Elementary's first openly gay couple. And it's a pairing that proved surprisingly effective this week. Tweek is so often treated as a one-note character on the show, it's nice to see him branch out and show different sides for a change. One thing that also stood out about this episode is the relative lack of continuity. The only plot point that really carried over from last week is Cartman's deteriorating relationship with Heidi. It's looking like the writers are backing off from the plot-driven approach of the last couple seasons, while still allowing for a few overarching threads to hold the season together. That seems like the best approach. It certainly allows for the much-needed variety that was so lacking in Season 20. And again, this episode was far more successful in terms of blending its A and B plots together into a proper whole. The whole North Korean situation wound up connecting on a number of levels. On one hand, this episode made the argument that Americans are too fixated on the theatrical shows of force between the US and North Korea and ignoring the more immediate dangers in their everyday lives. You could argue the whole distracted driving thing is a metaphor for the imminent healthcare implosion, complete with dead children everywhere. At the same time, this episode also voiced the frustration a lot of people feel these days, as with so many horrible things unfolding at once and competing for attention, it's hard to know where to direct your attention and concern anymore. Should we worry about healthcare or North Korea or the next round of hurricanes or gun violence? In 2017, we're all a little bit weak. There was even a slightly meta quality to the conversation between Tweek and Craig on the Ferris wheel. You get the sense that Trey Parker and Matt Stone were airing their own frustrations about wanting to move away from politically driven episodes but being unable to turn away from the sheer madness that is politics in 2017. On top of the biting satire and the strong characterization of Tweek and Craig, this episode also stood out for delivering a pair of terrific musical numbers. Cartman's attention-seeking, anti-suicide rap was great on its own, but the closing number really hit all the right notes. It was there that the true significance of this episode's title became apparent. One can only hope the message is received and understood,